Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on January 27, 1756, in a small town called Salzburg in Austria. His parents, Leopold and Anna Maria Mozart, were overjoyed by his arrival. Leopold, who was a skilled musician and composer, recognized early on that music would be an important part of their lives. Although their family was not rich, they were surrounded by music. They lived in a modest home, but it was always filled with the sounds of music and joy. Mozart had an older sister named Maria Anna, whom they lovingly called Nannerl. Nannerl was very important to Mozart's early musical education. She was his first teacher, and she played the harpsichord, a musical instrument that was like a piano. Mozart loved to watch his sister play. He admired her skill and was fascinated by the music. When Mozart was just 3 years old, something amazing happened. One day, as he watched Nannerl play the harpsichord, he decided to try playing it himself. To everyone's surprise, he was able to play simple melodies that sounded beautiful. His father, Leopold, was amazed. He could see that his young son had an incredible gift for music. Leopold, being a musician and teacher, decided to teach Mozart how to play the harpsichord. Although Mozart was very young, he learned quickly. His love for music was obvious. He would listen to a song, and then he could play it perfectly, just by remembering the sounds. Mozart's talent was extraordinary, and it grew stronger every day. By the time he was 5 years old, Mozart had already begun composing his own music. His first compositions were simple pieces called minuets, which are a type of dance music. These compositions were short, but they were beautiful and showed his great ability. Leopold would write down the notes of the music for Mozart, since Mozart was still too young to write the notes himself. People who heard these compositions were amazed. How could a 5-year-old boy create such lovely music? Mozart's early life was not easy, but it was full of music and love. His family, especially his father and sister, supported him in every way they could. They encouraged him to keep playing and composing music. Even though the family wasn't rich, they were very happy because they shared a love for music. Mozart's compositions were like seeds, and as he grew, those seeds would bloom into a beautiful tree of music. His first works were simple, but they were filled with promise. Everyone could see that Mozart had a special gift. He was not like other children. While other children were playing outside or enjoying games, Mozart was creating music. He spent hours each day with his harpsichord, playing and composing. His passion for music was clear, and he was determined to learn more. At just 6 years old, Mozart began performing for audiences. His family took him on a tour to show his talent to important people, including kings and queens. In every city they visited, people were amazed by the young boy's abilities. They were impressed by how well he played the harpsichord and by the music he composed. His talent was so remarkable that people started calling him a musical prodigy. Mozart's early years were a time of discovery, growth, and joy. His family, though not rich, gave him everything he needed to develop his musical skills. They traveled across Europe, and wherever they went, Mozart's music brought smiles and admiration. He was a very young boy, but his talent was already shining brightly. His journey as a composer had begun, and it would take him far beyond Salzburg. Mozart's early life teaches us a lot about following our passions, even at a young age. It shows us that talent can appear early in life and that with hard work and support, we can achieve amazing things. Mozart's story is one of inspiration. Even though he was just a child, his love for music was so strong that he changed the world with his compositions. His journey had only just begun, and the world would soon hear more of his beautiful music. As Mozart's talent grew, so did the opportunities for him to show his music to the world. By the time he was 6 years old, Mozart had already amazed many people with his ability to play and compose music. His father, Leopold, knew that Mozart had a special gift, and he wanted to share this gift with others. So, Leopold decided to take Mozart and his sister Nannerl on a grand tour of Europe, where they would perform for kings, queens, and other important people. Their first stop was Munich, a large city in Germany. It was here that Mozart and Nannerl played for the Elector of Bavaria, an important ruler in the area. The music they played was beautiful, and the Elector was so impressed that he invited the family to stay in Munich for a while. The people who heard Mozart's music were amazed. How could such a young boy create such beautiful sounds? Mozart's fame was starting to grow. After leaving Munich, the family traveled to Vienna, the capital of Austria. Vienna was a grand city, known for its music and culture. In Vienna, Mozart and Nannerl performed for the Empress of Austria, Maria Theresa. She was very impressed with Mozart's music and invited the family to stay in Vienna for several months. The Empress could see that Mozart was no ordinary child. He was a musical genius, and she wanted to support him. During their time in Vienna, Mozart and Nannerl continued to perform for important people. In each place they visited, people were amazed at how talented Mozart was. He played the harpsichord and sometimes the violin with such skill that it seemed as if the music was coming straight from his heart. As the family traveled from city to city, Mozart became well known as a child prodigy. He had already written many beautiful pieces of music, and his performances were always met with admiration. But traveling was not always easy. The family faced many challenges along the way. They often became ill and had to rest in different cities. Sometimes they had trouble finding places to stay or paying for their travel. Despite these difficulties, they kept going, driven by Mozart's love for music. His parents, especially his father, were determined to give him every opportunity to succeed. Mozart learned a lot from his travels. He not only met famous musicians, but also heard many different types of music from different countries. He saw the world in a new way and was inspired by the music and the people he met. He also saw grand palaces and beautiful cities, which filled his imagination and helped him grow as both a person and a composer. The family's next stop was in Frankfurt, followed by Brussels, Paris, and London. In each city, Mozart and Nannerl gave concerts and performed for royal families and wealthy patrons. In Paris, Mozart met some of the greatest musicians of the time, and he learned from them. He listened to their music and saw how they played. He even started to compose new pieces of music that showed the influence of these famous musicians. His talent was growing, and he was beginning to understand how to use his gift in new ways. One of the most important things Mozart learned on his travels was how to connect with people through music. Even though he was young, his music had the power to make people feel happy, excited, and moved. When he played, it was like the music spoke directly to their hearts. Mozart was not just a musician, he was an entertainer and an artist. He had the ability to bring people together with his music, and that was something very special. But as amazing as these travels were, they were also difficult. The family did not always have enough money. There were times when they could not find a place to stay, and they had to sleep in inns or even on the streets. At times, the family's health was not good, and they had to rest for weeks in different cities. Despite all of these challenges, Mozart and his family kept going because they knew that his talent was too great to ignore. They believed that his music could change the world, and they were determined to help him share it with as many people as possible. Throughout their travels, Mozart's music became known in many parts of Europe. People started to talk about the young boy from Salzburg who could play the harpsichord and compose beautiful music. Everywhere they went, Mozart performed for audiences of all ages. Whether in the grand courts of kings and queens or in small towns, people were amazed at his talent. The more they traveled, the more people Mozart impressed. His music was spreading far and wide. Mozart's family continued their journey to other cities, including Zurich. Each place they visited gave Mozart new experiences, new lessons, and new inspiration for his music. His time in each city helped him grow, both as a musician and as a person. He saw many different kinds of music, learned from different cultures, and began to understand how music could tell stories and express emotions. His travels were a key part of his early development as a composer. The journey across Europe was not always easy, but it was a crucial part of Mozart's life. It helped him become the composer that the world would come to admire. The challenges he faced on the road only made him stronger, and the people he met along the way helped shape the music he would create in the years to come. The world had started to take notice of Mozart, and his journey had only just begun. By the time Mozart and his family returned to Salzburg, he was no longer just a boy with a musical gift. He was a young composer who had already traveled across Europe, performed for kings and queens, and written beautiful music. He had learned so much on his travels, and his music was beginning to show the influence of all the places he had visited and the people he had met. His journey across Europe had not only made him famous, but it had also helped him become a better musician and a more inspired composer. The journey of Mozart and his family across Europe marked the beginning of his incredible career. It was during these years of travel that Mozart's music reached new heights, and his name began to be known far beyond Salzburg. The world was about to witness the genius of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. After many years of traveling across Europe, Mozart and his family returned to Salzburg, the town where he had been born. By this time, Mozart was no longer a little boy. He was a young man, full of ideas, and ready to take the next step in his musical journey. Though he had seen many places and met many famous musicians, Salzburg was still his home. It was the place where he had first learned to play music, and it would continue to be an important part of his life. When Mozart and his family returned to Salzburg, his father, Leopold, was still working for the Prince Archbishop of Salzburg. The Prince Archbishop was a very important person, like the ruler of the town. He held a lot of power, and he had control over the music in Salzburg. When the Mozart family returned, the Prince Archbishop offered Mozart a job. This was a great honor, and it was a sign that Mozart had grown into a respected musician. The job he was given was to be a court musician, which meant he would play music for the Prince Archbishop and also write music for his court. Being a court musician gave Mozart the chance to perform and compose music regularly. He played the violin in the court orchestra, which was a group of musicians who played together. He also wrote music for the orchestra to play, which was a big responsibility. Sometimes he even directed the orchestra, meaning he stood in front of the musicians and showed them how to play the music. This was an important skill, and it helped Mozart become a better conductor and composer. While life as a court musician in Salzburg was stable, it was not always easy for Mozart. The Prince Archbishop often told Mozart what kind of music to write. This made Mozart unhappy. He loved music and wanted the freedom to create his own compositions, but instead, he had to follow the Prince Archbishop's orders. This made him feel frustrated. He wanted to express his own ideas and write the music that came from his heart, not just what he was told to write. Although Mozart was not happy with the restrictions of his job, he still worked hard. He wrote many beautiful pieces of music during this time. He composed symphonies, which are large pieces of music for an orchestra, and he also wrote many piano sonatas and concertos for different instruments. His music was full of life and emotion, and people loved to hear it. Mozart's music was already starting to be known beyond Salzburg. People from other cities in Europe began to hear about him and his work. Despite his success as a composer, Mozart was not earning enough money to live comfortably. The Prince Archbishop did not pay him much, and Mozart felt that he deserved to be paid more for his hard work. There were times when Mozart and his family had little money, and they struggled to pay for food and other basic needs. This was a difficult time for Mozart, but he did not give up. He continued to write music, and he continued to dream of a better life. Mozart's frustration with his job in Salzburg grew over time. He felt that he was not able to fully use his talent. He longed for the freedom to compose the kind of music he loved and to be recognized for his abilities. He dreamed of living in a big city where he could find more opportunities to share his music with the world. Vienna, the capital of Austria, was a place where many great musicians lived and worked. Mozart had visited Vienna before, and he knew it was a city full of musical possibilities. He decided that it was time for a change, and he made the bold decision to leave Salzburg and move to Vienna. Leaving Salzburg was not an easy decision. It was the place where he had grown up and where his love for music had first started. It was also where his family had supported him and helped him become the musician he was. But Mozart knew that in order to grow as a composer, he needed to be in a place where his music could be heard by more people. Vienna was the perfect city for that. When Mozart arrived in Vienna, he did not have a steady job. It was a big city, full of musicians, composers, and performers. Mozart needed to find a way to make a living. He began by giving concerts and performing his own music for the people of Vienna. At first, it was not easy. He had to work hard to get people to notice him. But slowly, word of his talent spread, and people started to attend his concerts. As his reputation grew, so did his success. In Vienna, Mozart also started to compose operas, which were a special type of music that told a story through singing. The people of Vienna loved opera, and Mozart became known for his operas. His first opera in Vienna, The Abduction from the Seraglio, was a huge success. People loved the beautiful music and the exciting story. Mozart's operas were different from those of other composers because they were full of emotion and complex characters. People could feel the emotions in the music, and this made his operas very popular. Mozart's life in Vienna was not without challenges. Although he had more freedom to compose the music he loved, he still faced financial difficulties. His lifestyle was expensive, and he spent a lot of money on clothes, food, and entertainment. Sometimes, he did not have enough money to pay his bills. This was a problem that would continue to follow him throughout his life. But despite these difficulties, Mozart never gave up on his music. He loved to compose and perform, and he continued to create beautiful pieces of music. During his time in Vienna, Mozart also met and married Constanze Weber, a woman who shared his love for music. They had a family, and Mozart worked hard to support them. Although he faced many struggles, Mozart was happy to have a family who supported him. Constanze was there for him during the difficult times, and together they built a life full of love and music. Mozart's time in Vienna marked the beginning of his greatest successes as a composer. His operas, symphonies, and chamber music became famous, and he was admired by musicians and music lovers all over Europe. Even though life in Vienna was not always easy, Mozart's music continued to bring joy to the people who heard it. He had finally found the freedom to compose the music he loved, and this freedom allowed him to become one of the greatest composers in history. Mozart's life in Vienna marked a period that would become known as his golden years. During this time, he experienced many successes, but also faced significant struggles. These years were both the best and the most challenging of his life. He had finally settled in the music capital of Europe, and it was here that he would create some of his most famous and beloved works. Mozart was no longer just a young prodigy. By now, he was an established composer and performer, well known throughout Vienna. He was admired for his incredible talent, and people loved to listen to his music. His performances were filled with energy and emotion, and his music seemed to speak directly to the hearts of his listeners. Many of his concerts sold out, and he was often invited to play for wealthy patrons and members of the royal family. He was earning more money than ever before, and for a time his life seemed to be going very well. One of Mozart's most significant successes during this time was the creation of his operas. He loved writing operas, and the people of Vienna loved to watch them. Mozart's operas were different from others. They were full of beautiful melodies, exciting stories, and deep emotions. One of his most famous operas, The Marriage of Figaro, became an instant success. The music was lively and joyful, and the story, filled with humor and misunderstandings, made people laugh. Don Giovanni, another one of his operas, was darker, but also filled with passion and drama. This opera was just as successful as The Marriage of Figaro, and it made Mozart's name even more famous. Mozart also wrote many other pieces of music during these years. He composed symphonies, chamber music, sonatas, and concertos. Each piece he wrote was filled with energy and creativity. One of his most well-known works from this time was Symphony No. 40, which is known for its dramatic and emotional music. Mozart's music during these years was unlike anything anyone had heard before. It was fresh, new, and exciting, and it made him one of the most important composers of his time. Despite these successes, Mozart's life was not as easy as it seemed. While he was earning more money, he was also spending it quickly. Mozart loved to live a good life. He liked to wear fine clothes, enjoy good food, and spend time with his friends. He often hosted dinner parties and enjoyed socializing. However, this lifestyle was expensive, and Mozart spent more money than he earned. He found it difficult to manage his finances, and this led to many problems. There were times when he didn't have enough money to pay his bills, and he had to borrow money from friends and patrons. In addition to his financial troubles, Mozart also faced emotional struggles. His health was not always good, and he often felt stressed and unhappy. He worked long hours, sometimes spending days without rest, to complete his many compositions. Even though he loved music, the pressure to keep creating and performing took a toll on him. He was often exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The stress from his work, combined with his financial problems, led to many sleepless nights and a sense of frustration. Despite the challenges he faced, Mozart did not give up on his music. His passion for composing was stronger than any problem he encountered. He continued to write music that was full of beauty and emotion. He believed in the power of music to bring people together and to express feelings that words could not. Even though his personal life was sometimes difficult, his music continued to shine brightly. During this time, Mozart also struggled with his relationships. He was married to Constanze Weber, and they had children together. However, their marriage was not always easy. They faced many challenges, including financial difficulties and the sadness of losing children. Despite these hardships, they supported each other. Constanze was a loving wife, and she did everything she could to help Mozart through tough times. Although their life together was not perfect, they shared a deep love for each other. In the middle of all this, Mozart's fame continued to grow. He was invited to perform in many cities and even received commissions to write music for different events. People from all over Europe came to see him perform, and many musicians admired his talent. Mozart had become a symbol of musical genius, and his works were played and admired in concert halls around the world. He was a true master of his art, and his music had the power to inspire people from all walks of life. Despite all his success, Mozart still felt the pressure of living up to his own expectations. He was constantly looking for ways to improve his music and make it even more beautiful. This desire for perfection sometimes led him to push himself too hard. He worked tirelessly, day after day, composing new pieces, rehearsing for performances, and worrying about his finances. The pressure he put on himself to be the best sometimes caused him to become stressed and frustrated. As Mozart's reputation grew, he also became more involved in the social life of Vienna. He attended parties, concerts, and gatherings where he could meet other musicians and artists. These social events were important because they helped him make connections with people who could support his work. He also enjoyed the company of his friends and fellow musicians. However, he was not always able to enjoy these events because he was often preoccupied with his work and his financial troubles. In the midst of his success and struggles, Mozart found comfort in his music. It was through his music that he could express his deepest feelings, whether they were of joy, sorrow, love, or frustration. His music allowed him to escape from the pressures of life and find peace. Even during his hardest times, when money was tight and his health was poor, Mozart continued to compose beautiful pieces of music that would leave a lasting legacy for generations to come. Mozart's golden years were a time of great achievement, but also a time of personal and financial struggles. He had found success, but the price of that success was high. Still, Mozart remained committed to his music, and his passion never wavered. The world of music had been forever changed by his genius, and his works would continue to inspire people for centuries to come. In the final years of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's life, his health began to decline. For much of his life, Mozart had been somewhat fragile, but as he grew older, he started feeling even more tired and weak. His body ached, and he often had headaches and stomach problems. Despite these struggles, Mozart did not stop composing music. His love for music was so strong that it kept him going, even when he felt exhausted or sick. Even in his most difficult times, music was his comfort. One of the most important pieces Mozart worked on in his final years was his Requiem. A requiem is a type of music written for a funeral to honor someone who has passed away. Mozart's Requiem was special. It was dark, emotional, and filled with deep feelings. Some believe that Mozart knew he was writing it for himself, as he was very ill and felt his time on earth was running out. He poured all his sadness, fear, and hope into the music. Even though he struggled with his health, he kept working on the Requiem, trying to finish it before it was too late. During this time, Mozart also faced personal loss. In 1789, his beloved mother, Anna Maria, passed away. Mozart was very close to his mother, and her death was a great sadness for him. It was hard for him to cope with the loss, but he used his grief to help him compose. His music became a way for him to express emotions that words could not capture. Even though he was heartbroken, Mozart kept creating beautiful music. However, despite all his efforts, Mozart was unable to complete the Requiem. On December 5, 1791, at the age of just 35, Mozart passed away. His death came much too soon for someone who had so much more music to give to the world. Although Mozart didn't live long enough to finish his Requiem, his student, Franz Xaver Süssmayr, completed the piece based on Mozart's notes and instructions. Today, The Requiem is considered one of Mozart's greatest works and is loved by people all over the world. Even though Mozart's life was short, his music has lived on for centuries. His operas, symphonies, concertos, and chamber music continue to inspire and touch the hearts of people everywhere. Mozart's music is known for its beauty, complexity, and emotion. His ability to express deep feelings through music was unlike anything anyone had ever heard before. Even after more than 200 years, Mozart's music is still played in concert halls, opera houses, and theaters around the world. Mozart's legacy is not just in the music he created, but in the spirit he left behind. He was a man who loved music with all his heart. He faced many challenges in his life, from health problems to financial struggles, but he never gave up on his passion. Even when life was hard, he kept composing beautiful, powerful music. His determination and resilience serve as an inspiration to all of us. Mozart's influence can be seen in the work of many famous composers who came after him, such as Ludwig van Beethoven, Franz Schubert, and Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. These composers admired Mozart's ability to create beautiful melodies and his skill in writing music that was both complex and emotionally moving. Mozart set the standard for classical music, and his influence can still be felt today. Mozart's life teaches us the importance of perseverance, passion, and dedication. Even when life is tough, it's important to keep working toward your dreams. Mozart's music is a reminder that even the shortest lives can leave a lasting impact on the world. His legacy will never be forgotten, and his music will. The life of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was a journey full of music, passion, and challenges. From a very young age, Mozart showed that he was no ordinary child. Born in Salzburg, Austria in 1756, he started playing music at an incredibly early age and began composing his own pieces by the age of 5. His early years were filled with family support, and his father, Leopold, recognized his son's amazing gift and worked hard to guide him. Mozart's talent took him on a journey across Europe. As a young boy, he performed for kings, queens, and other important people in cities like Munich, Vienna, and Paris. Everywhere he went, people were amazed by his skill and creativity. He composed beautiful pieces of music that made people feel emotions they could not put into words. However, traveling was not easy for Mozart and his family. They faced sickness, financial problems, and many other challenges, but Mozart's passion for music kept them going. After many years of travel, Mozart returned to Salzburg and began working as a court musician. While he was given a steady job, he longed for the freedom to compose music that was true to his heart. He moved to Vienna, the capital of music, where he experienced both great success and many struggles. In Vienna, he wrote some of his most famous works, including operas like The Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni. He also composed symphonies, chamber music, and concertos. Despite his success, Mozart faced financial difficulties, as well as the challenges of living in a busy and competitive city. In his final years, Mozart's health began to fail, but his love for music never stopped. He continued to compose even when he was sick and exhausted. One of his most important works, Requiem, was written during this time, and it is now considered one of his greatest achievements. Although Mozart died at a young age, just 35 years old, his legacy has lived on through his music. His works continue to be performed and loved by people all over the world. Mozart's story teaches us many valuable lessons. First, we learn that talent and passion can lead to great achievements, but they also require hard work, dedication, and persistence. Even though Mozart faced many struggles in his life, he never gave up on his love for music. He continued to compose, perform, and create beautiful works of art, even when life was difficult. His story shows us the power of following our dreams, even when things are not easy. Another lesson from Mozart's life is the importance of resilience. Despite facing challenges like poor health, financial problems, and personal loss, he kept working on his music. He didn't let these hardships stop him from doing what he loved. In life, we will all face difficulties, but it's important to stay focused on our goals and keep going, just like Mozart did. Finally, Mozart's life reminds us that our time on this earth is short, but the impact we make can last forever. Although Mozart lived only 35 years, his music continues to inspire people today, hundreds of years after his death. His works are still performed, and they will continue to be enjoyed for generations to come. This shows that the work we do today can have a lasting impact on the world, even after we are gone. In your own life, whether it's music, art, science, or anything else, you can apply these lessons. Keep working towards your dreams, even when things are tough. Don't let setbacks stop you, and always believe in your ability to make a difference in the world. I hope this story has inspired you to keep learning and growing. Congratulations on improving your English listening and comprehension skills by following this journey through Mozart's life. You've made great progress. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue creating more inspiring content. Thank you for listening, and keep up the great work on your English learning journey. We look forward to sharing more exciting stories with you in the future.